there a trip in particular with 40 plus cruises that you've been on? Is there something when you think back, this is Leo, this one I went on, maybe top some of the other ones, or is in the top three? Which what that might be?
Well, there is one area of the world. People always say, "What's your favorite cruise? What's your favorite spot?" There's an area of the world that to me it was just fascinating and continues to be one of the most interesting ones. And I have a story connected to that. And that's the Middle East. Going to Israel for the first time and visiting the Middle East and going to Jordan and Egypt and everything around the Middle East. At the time, one of our favorite people from PBS was Gwen Ifill. And Gwen, was in the New York Times, was at NBC, came to PBS, and she was in charge of Washington Week. And then she joined with Judy Woodruff as the first two female anchors for the PBS NewsHour. And we invited Gwen to come to one of our cruises. I think it was in Alaska. And at the time, she was like, "Oh, I'm very busy. I can't do this, maybe 3 days." She walked on and she's like, "Wait a minute. I think I could stick around for more than this." And she wound up doing 8 cruises with us before she died, unfortunately, a couple of years ago. But there was one cruise with her, which was so interesting. We were debating, like, where would she like to go next? And we had an opportunity to do one of our programs and an itinerary that included Israel. And I told her, I said, "You can't be the anchor of the NewsHour and not have seen this part of the world because it's so much a part of news for 1,000 different reasons." And so she came. She came with us on this, and she lectured throughout the voyage, and we had a great time with it. But when you go and you visit the Middle East, and specifically when you go and see Israel, you can't help but be moved by what you experience. And of course, politically, it'd be all over the map in terms of how you feel about the government and how they treat the Palestinians and all that other stuff. But when you see it, it's the size of New Jersey, and yet in terms of influence and impact politically around the world, for lots of good and bad reasons, it's a fascinating place. I mean, I'm raised Catholic. Your catechism comes alive as you go through the Valley of Armageddon and you see this part of the world. But doing it with her was really special because I think I've done it probably 7 or 8 times now. I've been to Israel, and it just challenges your thinking about politics, about religion, about world affairs, about the Holocaust, and in ways that really surprised me. And I often say to people, go there and have the experience. I know it'll change the way you think. One way or another, it'll change the way you think. And with Gwen, it was a wonderful opportunity to share with her. And, because she had this responsibility as an anchor and, west of it. And 3 weeks later, she calls me and she says she was invited to a salon, kind of a fancy dinner deal, at a gentleman's house who owned a lot of magazines based in Washington. And she was seating next to the Israeli ambassador to the United States. And, and be able to talk about these issues, having been there and seen it. She said, it was such a gift. It was such a gift. She never would have had the quality conversations that she had with him if she had not had that experience. And so, that's one example of the opportunity that travel proposes. I mean, when you go to Vietnam and you go to Saigon and you see everything that was there in terms of the war, it can't help but impact your feeling about that and that part of our history. And when you go to Rome and you go to the Vatican and you see it, and you just have these impressions that just make you think differently and hopefully think broader. And so that part of the world has been most interesting. Sharing with Gwen was really special, one of my favorite memories. But again, there have been so many opportunities to visit different parts of China, early into China before a lot of it changed. Fascinating to see how that's grown now. It's been a real gift.